Hey, what's up, everybody? Tomorrow we're going to be putting up some videos on Twitch and YouTube for our full thrust games. I just wanted to take a brief video and show everybody what ships the players that come have choice of selecting. Enjoy. All right, so the purpose of this video is to show people what ships the players that come over for full thrust nights have to choose from. This isn't inclusive of everything that I have printed. Some of it's not printed, some of it's from Shapeways, some of it's official models from Fantasy Flight Games, Star Wars Armada. But I think it gives a good roundabout of what we've got. So starting on this table, we have a fantastic variety of Klingon vessels from old Katinga class battlecruisers, birds of prey, little Vorcha cruisers, and Egvar. Most of the stuff that you're going to see is 3D printed. And what you'll see is, I don't like to, since I'm doing most of the stuff at home, almost all of it at home, some of the stuff fails. Like if you look at this Vorcha nacelle, some of these haven't showed up, and I haven't had the time or the inclination to reprint them. But you know, you don't throw them away because you put a lot of effort into getting it printed. It has two different kinds of birds of prey. People who are familiar with the Star Wars canon will know that there's kind of a weird place when it comes to talking about the size of the bird of prey. Here I've got what on my table I represent as a Burrell class bird of prey and a Cavort class bird of prey. And, you know, I seem to like it. Basically, with all of the ships that we have, the rule is, does it look good on the table? So the scaling of a lot of these things is different. I try very hard to make it match the scale with the Star Wars Armada ships, which you'll see in a bit. Some of the scales are more accurate to each other. Like all of these Star Trek ships are scaled 1 to 4,000, where some of the other ships are different. The one exception to that is the Romulan bird of prey, which is scaled approximately 1 to 6,500, so it's easier to print up. Scaling is a conversation that you can have till you're blue in the face, and not only is it a question of what scale should you use, but the question for Star Trek at least is where you get the information on what your scale is. So we have a couple Mass Effect ships here. I need to reprint this. The file that I got from Thingiverse, the legs are kind of crimply. And we have some Battlestar Galactica ships. I need to redo the base star. Right now I think the base star is 160 millimeters. I think it should be 210 millimeters. All these ships that we have use the Star Wars Armada key slot system or the fighter peg system, and you'll see that here in a second. Got a Mercury Battlestar. We have a nasty looking Battlestar Galactica. Here's a little different Battlestar Galactica. And then a Battlestar from 3D Warehouse that we've printed and primed. Also a in-scale Valkyrie Battlestar. Then this is a favorite that we had. It was requested by one of our players. The NSEA Protector from Galaxy Quest. Then here's that Romulan Warbird again. We have a Sulaco from the Aliens movie. And then a really out of scale Firefly class transport from the show Firefly and Serenity. A friend of mine chose to paint it up along with him painting the base. These bases are designed by Brad Reynolds, and we use them for our full thrust games, but they're available for pretty much anything. They're on pin shape in a variety of sizes and configurations. Speaking of Brad Reynolds, here's a small sampling of the ships that he designed for our group. We have a full catalog of them on pin shape. These are the ones that I kept after printing out the showcase of them and delivering them to Brad. Moving on, we have one of many different Terran battlecruisers from StarCraft. This is a Thingiverse model, I think, or a Mayan mini factory. And here's some Void Rays and some things that kind of look like Terran Wraiths. Moving on, we have Stargate, a variety of ships that are available. We have some Hataks in different configurations. Getting these to print is kind of difficult support-wise, but they've come out. The ones that we're currently using come out pretty good. We also have some Alcash medium-range bombers and a load of Death Gliders. Some of these are the Star Wars Armada bases, fighters. This one is a similar base to the full thrust cruiser base, but it's designed for small ships that use a 2mm peg, similar to the size of the peg that you'd see in Star Wars Armada. We also have some Wraith Ships. This is an example of one that it really matters how well you take care of your filament, because this very large Wraith cruiser, or Wraith Hive ship rather, cracked at the back, and we had to use some 2-part epoxy to get it to sit right. And we have a Wraith Hive ship from Shapeways, a Wraith cruiser, and we've got some Towery ships. We have 4, where is it? I don't see the 4th. We're missing a BC-304, but we also have the X-303. We have some Alteran or ancient puddle jumpers. F-302, here's another puddle jumper and another F-302. A couple different takes on the Ori battlecruiser, or I guess the Ori mothership. We have a Aurora class battleship from the Ancients, and then a couple pieces of scenery. We have a Stargate, and we have Midway Station. Moving along, we've got some ships from the Expanse. These are freely available models of the Rocinante and the Donager from Thingiverse. These ones didn't come out perfect, but they came out well enough for table. You know, once they get printed and primed and stuff, they'll look a little better. And this is the very first one I printed, and it looks worse for wear. If you look at these guys, they look much better. All right, that'll do it for table 1. All right, now on to table 2. Let me see if I can get it all in one shot. There we go. Getting ready for streaming on Twitch this Saturday. Let's take a look at what we've got. Like we said, this all started with the idea to have things scaled that looks good with the official Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars Armada ships. So we have a lot of those. We have some Star Destroyers, Light Carrier, Interdictor, another Light Carrier, a mess of Victory class Star Destroyers, but then we have a lot of others from home 3D printing and from Shapeways. So Shapeways, this is a Shapeways Vindicator from Mel Miniatures. And here's some home 3D printed ones. There is Mel's Arquintons from before the Arquintons was released. And then the official Arquintons. We have some Lorinar Strike Cruisers that have been primed and washed but not painted. We have a Ton Falk carrier, a little Customs Corvette, and some Dreadnoughts. Both Dreadnoughts that are home 3D printed and ones that are from Mel's Miniatures. All right. Now, of the official Fantasy Flight Games models, I don't have any fighters represented because, frankly, I kind of only have room on the table for cruisers. Have an XQ platform. We 3D printing. We're working on painting to make it look acceptable. And on to the Rebels. So the Rebel ships are a variety of things where we've, for instance, got Mel Miniatures Corvus after it had the New Republic refit from Battlefront 2. Lots of official miniatures. There's also miniatures that we have cast at home to kind of thicken out the ranks. Sometimes we've had failures, so here's a MC-30 with a upside down Nebulon B engine. This model is one that I recently cobbled together. This is a reproduction of the original concept of what the Millennium Falcon was going to be before it was flushed out, and the Millennium Falcon and the CR-90 was separated. Some more recasts. Here is a home. This is a Mel's Miniature C-70 refit Charger of the old Counselor cruiser. Then we're going to show you a few different ones here in a second. There's a couple Mel's Miniature, I think these are Crusader Corvettes from the Old Republic. And DP-20 gunboat. More dreadnoughts, because it's reasonable to assume that the Rebels would have gotten dreadnoughts. And we go over the cruisers. We have a couple generic Mon Calamari cruisers, a couple official ones. This is a Mel's Miniatures Nebula Star Cruiser, Star Destroyer from the New Republic, and then one from Thingiverse. Have some assault frigates. Another generic home printed Mon Calamari cruiser. Have some MC-80s. We've got the MC-75, MC-90, Rebel 1, and an MC-80B Mon Armada. All right. We're going to come over here and look at the Old Republic. And here we go. These are recast from the Arquintans from Fantasy Flight. These are 3D printed at home C-70 Chargers, Acclimators, Venators. This is a recast but hasn't been painted yet. Pelta. And pretty soon we're going to have a Haven Starbase. And we'll go over here. The Confederacy of Independent Systems. You run into an issue where if you don't paint the stuff as you print it, you start getting a pretty big backlog of painting. So I've gotten to some of these ships, but not a lot of them. Have the Providence carriers, the Recusants, what are those called? They're Munificents, Captor cruisers, hard cell transports, Vulture bombers or Vulture fighters. Then we have the droid control ship, the Lucrehulk droid control ship. And then later on, in episode 3, they had the battlecruiser variant. Alrighty. Now here is some very special ships. We have Star Trek. Again, these are 1 in 4,000 Star Trek Dominion ships, except for the Dominion battleship, which is pretty darn big. This one is from Shapeways. I need to print out a couple of these myself. But we've got the Jem'Hadar cruisers. We have a plethora of Jem'Hadar attack ships. All right, we're back. We're looking at the CIS. So we have Breen cruisers, Breen frigates, and then some Cardassian ships. Cardassian ships, both the Galore and the Keldon. And then gonna change universes. So this is my Centauri fleet from Babylon 5. Got all the major ships, Centurion, the Octurian, Primus, the Balvaran. Got some Kuwati gunships. Got the scary little attack ships. Altarian cruiser. Then one of the advanced cruisers from, I think, Legend of the Rangers, or called Arms. We got some more Babylon 5 ships with the Vorlons, the Shadows. These races I haven't really fleshed out yet, or at least not in 3D printing. Then we have, I think, my favorite Babylon 5 race, the Narn. Everything from the Bintok Dreadnought to the Chakon class heavily cruisers. This is another example of keeping 3D prints that fail. The way that I had these oriented means that almost all of them failed at one point, except for this guy. But, you know, they're printed and they look pretty good, so I kept them. Alrighty. Then we have Babylon 5 Earthforce. Everything from Hyperion, the cruisers, Nova dreadnoughts, Olympus corvettes, Omega destroyers. Like Star Wars, they have a funny way of describing their ships, where that's obviously not a destroyer. It's more of a battleship, but they call it a destroyer. Avenger carrier, Warlock advanced destroyer, Star Furies and Thunderbolts, and then things like the Kronos frigate, the Marathon cruiser, Artemis, Hermes. Yeah. All right, jump in universes again. We have Star Trek Federation. So we have a pretty good representation of the Federation here. I have more Federation ships from TOS and a couple TNG ships, but I chose not to grab them. So this is another example. Had a failure with the Enterprise E, where the nacelle kind of messed up. I had another one. I had another one. And finally I was like, you know, maybe I'm going about this wrong. So this model was printed in two halves, the saucer section and the nacelle section. You can see the little glued area. And it finally came out right. I've been printing a lot, or I've been painting a lot of the Star Trek ships trying to catch up. So we've got the Steam Runner, the Saber, the Intrepid, the Prometheus. We have a Freedom class. I think that's a, what is that? Not New Orleans, it's a Portland class, I think. Miranda, Cheyenne, Oberth, Defiant, Galaxy class, more Reliance. This is the Enterprise B refit of the Excelsior, Akira, Galaxy. This is a custom design of, it's basically the Norway in a tanker variant, and I called it the Finland class. And we got a couple different variants of the Nebula class, some combat variants, some sensor variants, the Phoenix variant, Ambassador class, and the Nova class, the actual Excelsior, and this is a Federation Dreadnought, the 3 nacelle variant. And then we have a couple pieces of scenery. We have Subspace Station K7, and we have Starbase 375 from Deep Space Nine. All right. And last but not least, we've been poking into Halo. And this is an interesting example of scale. Like, where do you get, how do you scale things so they look good on the table? Because a CAS cruiser carrier is like 8,000 meters or like 5,000 meters or something like that, where an ISD is only 1,600 meters. But you're trying to find things that look good on the table together. So we have the CIS. This literally just printed a couple minutes ago. So I haven't painted it, primed it. It needs to be glued together. I forgot to model in a Armada keyhole, so I can't mount it yet, but I'll just print it out and paint it, and print it, and glue it rather. Then we have the ORS, an ADP, little Phantom, SDV, a CCS, a CRS. Then we have some UNSC ships, like the Marathon. This is a Paris frigate, Halberd destroyer, a Strident frigate. I tried to figure out how big the Infinity would be, because 10 of these little frigates come out of the Infinity's belly. And if I scaled it exactly correct, which I'm not going to do when I go and print the Infinity, but it would be over 1 meter long. To put that in perspective, this table is 6 feet by 6 feet. So it would be from here to here, a little bit further over here. So that's a big ship. With Fantasy Flight's Super Star Destroyer coming out, I've also got a Bellator to print. I will attempt to print the CSO, but it obviously won't be in the correct scale. Again, we're going for what looks cool on the table. And in the ever-present quest to find a good scale, here's 2 different scales of the UNSC ODP, or Orbital Weapons Platform. The Mac, basically a Super Mac cannon with a space station attached to it. One at 150 millimeters and one at 50 millimeters. I think I'll print more of the 150, but I need to do some styling to make it look more like the Mac from the game. And I need to find a good orientation to print it. All right, that is ships that my players have access to when we set up our games. This is only relevant to when this video gets published, but we're going to have a game this Saturday, and we're going to host it on twitch.tv/Pulsifer. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.